Good evening, this is Maestro Cortello with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today I have a 1v1 on Quest Heresy. Our first player is Daniel, trademark, playing as this Force Commander. I don't know what kind of Force Commander this is supposed to be, but he's got a cape, he's got a cross on his shoulder pad, he's got that cool helmet. Force Commander is a very tanky melee hero, very good. Diomedes is honestly full of BS. He's got some really good stuff up his sleeve, especially that Power Fist. But his opponent is Tiger. Now, I believe this is actually a different Tiger from the one who spells it with a Y, the Chaos player. This guy is playing the Apothecary, a healing commander who is not a very good fighter, but he is a very good healer. And healing especially works well on tough, tanky units like Tax and ASM. Alright, so this is a Space Marine mirror, as you can obviously see. A lot of people have been complaining about mirrors. They've been saying that mirrors are lame in general, and there are definitely some mirrors where that's true. I think that's often been said of Eldar mirrors, since it supposedly comes down a lot to whoever wants to spam Rangers more, and then like the Ranger spam will just result in units getting instantly killed, and it gets really annoying and stuff. Chaos mirrors are pretty messy. I don't really like them that much either. I think Space Marine mirrors are one of the more enjoyable mirrors in the game. Although I'd say the interesting thing about Space Marine mirrors is that it's fairly tolerable in terms of how fun it is or isn't to play. But I'd say it's one of the less exciting in that it's going to be... Basically, Space Marine is a relatively low DPS race. So you're less likely to see a lot of death and destruction, I think, in a Space Marine mirror than in, say, an Orc mirror or an Eldar mirror or a Chaos mirror. I mean, as it is, we just had an engagement where literally no one lost any models. No one lost any models in that whole engagement. And part of that was the heal of the Apothecary. Part of that is a lot of these units actually just not doing that much damage. And I don't mean that all to whine about Space Marine. They're a good race, but it's just part of their design where, at least early on in Tier 1, they mainly have ranged units. Ranged units in general have lower base DPS than melee units, and then obviously they have these scouts which don't really do a lot of range damage. And we just had another engagement where literally neither player took any losses whatsoever. Everyone's just taking health damage right now, but no losses. Tiger gets the map control. Daniel actually going for a double tack build. That's a fairly rare thing. You usually don't see double tack builds in 1v1 unless the Space Marine player is playing against Imperial Guard. Since against Imperial Guard, scouts usually just tend to bleed without actually doing much. And obviously you have your starting scout, so you're always going to have at least one scout squad. Unless you lose it. And the scout squad is still important for detection and repair, but having multiple scout squads isn't as useful against Imperial Guard. Both players getting Assault Space Marines as their 4th unit. Tiger with a full gen farm. Daniel with literally nothing. And Daniel actually just straight up retreats right there. Again, still none of these players have not taken any losses. Daniel, from what I have heard, is a pretty good player. Finally puts down a power node. I think Daniel is mainly known for annoying people a lot in ranked by building triple devastators. Here, clearly, he has not gone for triple devastators. But I think his Assault Space Marines might actually lose a model this time. Will they? No, they actually don't. And now Daniel's Assault Space Marines jump into Tiger's Assault Space Marines. Tiger's Assault Space Marine's probably going to get a heal here, but actually his Apothecary should throw down the heal, maybe on the... No, he actually does do it on the Assault Space Marines, and then he gets that Apothecary out of there, and I think we're going to... Maybe now we'll have some model losses. Someone here's got to have some model losses. And maybe it's going to be these Assault Space Marines from Daniel. No, they don't even lose a model. Instead... it looks like Tiger gets his Assault Space Marines out of there, and still literally no model losses in this entire game so far. Daniel keeping his Assault Space Marines in play, though, even at about like 40% health, might lose a model if he chooses to keep them in play like this. But, I mean, he can get the cap off. he can still counter scouts, even with Assault Space Marines having only this much health. Scouts over here. Finally, someone loses a model. That's the first model loss of the entire game. Let's see. No weapon upgrades for Daniel. No upgrades for Tiger either. Now, Tiger's clearly got the better economy right now because he put his gens down a lot earlier. He went for a lighter build by going for a second scout instead of a second tack. I mean, he's had this full power farm for a while right now. Daniel actually floating a lot of requisition, and he should put down some power generators. So actually, these 1v1 games, they're not as much fun to watch as the 3v3 games, but I actually like casting them better. I have a little more time to watch what's going on, process things, and then elaborate a little bit more on my thoughts. There's usually just so much going on in those team games for me to keep up with everything and talk about all the things I want to talk about. Attacks right here, forcing melee on those scouts. They would have bled some of those scout models if those scouts had stayed in any longer, but very few losses in this entire game. Tiger already going to tier 2 with Daniel only just now putting down all those generators. So Daniel's behind in tech, and not for any good reason other than that he just hasn't been paying attention to his generator farm. And he actually decides to put some extra generators on this power node right here so that he can start getting there. I think he realizes his mistake and is trying to correct it. You just have to be a little careful on this map with this power node and this power generator being very exposed, very easy to destroy for your enemy, as long as they can get... and basically, as long as they can just win an engagement in the middle. And especially if he puts, Tiger puts a flamer on his tack squad. So, I would generally, my opinion, which I'm not too solid on this opinion, but I have the impression that the Force Commander is better in this matchup. Has the advantage. I don't know that for sure. I did used to play the Apothecary. And from time to time, I do play the Force Commander too, just because I play Space Marine. It's not too much of a stretch to play a different hero for a race that you already play. And the Force Commander is not terribly hard to play. One scout model goes down there. 2 scout models goes down there. Actually, very close to losing that squad for Daniel. But again, we see this fairly low DPS game here. Basically... Space Marines, I mean, even these Assault Space Marines, they actually have one of the lowest DPSs for a dedicated melee squad. And I guess part of that is they're not exactly a dedicated melee squad. They're more of a disruption unit that does melee. They do better range damage than most melee squads, for whatever that's worth. But I think Daniel will have to get his Assault Space Marines out of here. He might want to consider, jumping to disrupt and get away from Tiger's ASM. And then just get out of there. So Tiger's ASM have been upgraded to have the Sergeant. That Sergeant has a power sword and is just a 4th model, so his ASM are definitely going to be winning over Daniel's. Daniel does, of course, have the Force Commander, which is both good as a tie-up as well as a melee counter, still with no upgrades, but, I mean, probably wants to get some of those Tier 2 upgrades. Does a special attack right there and does knock over a bunch of units. Tiger actually upgrading to get a Sergeant on his Tactical Marine squad as well. Has completely unupgraded scouts. So that's a little interesting. Tiger could get a shotgun on one of his scouts or even both. And that would really limit the Force Commander, because that would be 2 shotgun blasts ready to just knock the Force Commander over. Or even just suppress him. Obviously, since he will be immune to knockback once he has Battlecry active. Daniel actually winning on the victory points, but Tiger's definitely got the map control right now, and he certainly has a major economic advantage. Tiger has this Dreadnought as well, upgrading to the Assault Cannon. I think that's interesting. Usually, you certainly see that a lot against Imperial Guard. But I mean, the Assault Cannon Dreadnought is just really good, period, to be honest. The main thing that's risky about the Dreadnought is that the Force Commander is one of the best units in the entire game for countering walkers. Because he has that Power Fist with the Flesh over Steel ability. And most vehicles will deal with Flesh over Steel by microing away. But Dreadnoughts generally can't do that, or at least they don't do it as well, because they need to be facing forward, basically in order to shoot or even just to actually fight. Obviously, you have a vehicle, it can actually drive backwards while still firing. Dreadnoughts don't work like that, and especially if a Dreadnought engages for melee, it's just going like straight up to a unit. And if it engages in melee with the Force Commander, that's basically giving him a free Flesh over Steel. Apothecary in right here, getting a little too close to Assault Space Marines. And I mean, again, against many other races, that would just be a clear wipe on the Apothecary, just going in way too far against against a melee unit. But even with the Sergeant, Assault Space Marines are still a relatively low DPS melee unit. Their DPS is something, with the Sergeant, it's going to be roughly like 110, somewhere between 110 and 113. I think closer to 110 actually. And that's considering that like units like Banshees and Sluggas have like 130 or 150 DPS right out of the gate, and then they have like 180 to over 200 in case of Sluggas once they have been upgraded to have their squad leader. Assault Space Marines jumping on this missile attack squad. That's Daniel's answer to the Dreadnought. Daniel actually went for a Razorback instead of a bigger vehicle. And his Razorback was actually harassing in base. I don't think that was really working out, though. Tiger has a huge army, even has this Plasma Cannon Devastator, which I think is a great choice. I love the Plasma Cannon Devastator. The only problem is that it's usually something of a novelty unit. It's usually not essential to your build. It's just something that's really, really nice to have. And, you know, it's especially good against Imperial Guard, but it's actually just really good against anything. Because it does Plasma Cannon damage. Plasma Cannon damage does full damage to infantry, and it also does bonus damage to super heavy infantry and heavy infantry. So if you hit a attack squad with a Plasma Cannon shot, it's going to be extremely good. And that's a dead Razorback. Tiger has a missile attack. One missile will send that Razorback out of control, but Daniel actually had the tech disadvantage, goes straight to tier 3, only buying a Razorback, and only gets a Sergeant on the Assault Space Marines, and he is getting a second missile attack. So those missiles will definitely give Daniel some decent AV. He'll have 2 sources of AV. The only problem is, well, not the only problem, but basically when you have a missile launcher, you are giving up one of those bolters. So that is going to reduce the range DPS against infantry of the attack squad by about 33%. Because you're losing one of those bolters. The missile can't reliably hit infantry units. So I was going to say that Daniel's tax would lose to Tiger's tax, but then Tiger's tax also has a missile launcher, and then he doesn't have other attacks. He just has scouts. And missile tax will still beat scouts in range combat. These scouts over here from Tiger, since they no longer have a vehicle to take out, they are attacking generators. Missile launchers are good against generators. And ooh, the Plasma Cannon Devastator from Tiger in a little bit of trouble. As much as I like the Plasma Cannon Devastator, Tiger has not really put it to use. In fact, he's kind of just bleeding from it. So a lot of backcapping right here. These scouts backcapping while this scout gets in cover to do some damage to them. But this scout squad will get jumped by the Assault Space Marines. They will have to go out of there. And Tiger actually destroys the node on this power node and decaps it. So Daniel now has no power income, basically. And now this Dreadnought right here in melee with the Assault Space Marines. Assault Space Marines do not have enough energy to do the Melt-A-Bomb yet. They now have it. Will Daniel do it? I think he probably will. Yes, he does. But he really needs to get those ASM out of there. Took one model loss. I thought he might get a second one out of there. And that Assault Cannon Dreadnought was in a little bit of trouble, but ultimately makes it out of there. But Daniel's missile attacks are coming back in here. His other missile attack, one of them retreated. This one is still here. Daniel having a lot of trouble, I think, with having so many fewer units. And I think that early tech disadvantage hurt him a bit, and he went to tier 3 instead of getting out more units. So he's definitely really hurting for units. Tiger, meanwhile, is in tier 3. And getting a Predator, and Tiger with massive map control. So Tiger has definitely been winning most of this game, in part due to that tech advantage. And the Force Commander just teleports straight in, has been upgraded to Terminator armor. That gives him Terminator armor. He has a Storm Bolter, so actually be doing pretty good range damage, as well as having a Power Fist to do heavy melee damage. That, and he can even teleport and still retreat, unlike regular Terminators. So it's a pretty good upgrade. You don't see it that often because it removes all of his previous war gear and resets his levels, and he can't level when he's a Terminator. Still massive map control for Tiger though. Tiger with a 2-cap, and basically every resource point on the map except for the power node. And I should stop looking at power nodes, look over here. Daniel charging forward with that Terminator Force Commander, but the Terminator Force Commander can't quite take on this Predator. And I guess that's why we did not see any upgrades whatsoever on the Force Commander. He did that so that none of those costs for investing in the Force Commander would have been sunk when he just went for the Terminator armor. Alright, Missile Attack Squad right here, taking a lot of damage from that Predator. They do get a rocket off and do some damage to that Predator, but they did not want to lose models there, so they did retreat. And that Scout Squad from Daniel will have to go. So it looks like Daniel's mostly been on the back foot of things. And I think, again, a lot of that has to do with not putting those generators down early enough, having a tech disadvantage, then going for a cheaper unit because he knew he had a tech disadvantage, but ultimately losing it. And by cheaper unit, I'm referring to that Razorback that he had in Tier 2, which he definitely overextended as well. He's certainly not out of the game yet, but Tiger has definitely made the better plays so far and is in the stronger position. It is actually... it says, yeah, it's now a 2-to-1 cap. Tiger about to get a 3-cap, bashing a lot of generators with that Predator. Now upgrading to the las cannon. Not entirely necessary, but certainly the las cannon is good. Certainly nothing going to be bad about that. This Force Commander actually upgrades to the Heavy Flamer. Will be good for burning down generators. Not so good against units. And we also have Vanguard veterans from Daniel, but they are in base so that they won't be able to do much yet. And now just these missile attacks right here. Going for that Dreadnought. Now has upgraded to Dark Age of technology. And uses an assault cannon barrage to really just drop these attacks. And one tack squad very close to going down. Wow, I thought it was going to go down there. But then Tiger actually jumped his Assault Space Marines away. And Tiger only has regular Assault Space Marines. Daniel has Vanguard Veterans. The Vanguard Veterans will generally win, but Tiger just activated Angels of Death. But I think that's still going to be a win for the Vanguard Veterans, with them having so much more health and doing more damage. Force Commander Terminator, though, is proving to be exceptionally tanky, though. Has heavy armor. And now he actually just using Cleansing Flame on this generator farm to basically just wipe out this generator farm. I'm a little concerned that he might lose his Force Commander right here, but that Force Commander tanks a ton of damage, finally gets knocked over by the special attack on the Dreadnought, and actually does not take out this generator right here. So Daniel definitely losing a lot of VPs right now. Basically just capping with these scouts. And the map has been pretty much in favor of Tiger the whole game. Alright, so Daniel he's still just got double tacks, which have not been able to take out this Dreadnought or that Predator. Certainly threatening it, but still just not enough to take it out. Dreadnought is coming in right here. These tacks in a little bit of trouble with having very low health, and probably going to get close to losing a model right now, especially with Assault Space Marines jumping on them. Daniel does retreats them quickly enough so that they do not get knocked down. But now the Vanguard veterans are here. And these scout fights. Daniel is actually now upgrading to shotguns. That will actually allow him to win a fight in scouts versus scouts, since the shotguns will do more damage. And it is actually pretty miraculous that Daniel is staying in this game despite these extremely impressive vehicles. He does have those double tacks, but these tacks proving to not be enough as far as AV. They don't really do... I mean, tacks, they do good damage in a single shot, but they don't do good DPS. The DPS, at least according to current statistics, is only about 10, and they do not snare. So Daniel only has these 2 ranged tacks as AV. He does kind of have his Terminator Force Commander. Is actually just going to go for a Cleansing Flame to wipe generators. Now, people have often complained about the Force Commander's ability to just wipe generators with Cleansing Flame. That looks like it actually has been nerfed a little bit in the Elite mod. But part of the problem with that, although certainly there's nothing wrong with wiping generators, is that in this point in the game, it's not as if Tiger needs the power. And it's nice for Daniel to have the red, but his priority should not be wiping generators. His priority should be getting something to deal with the Predator as well as the Dreadnought. Luckily, Daniel just put Assault Terminators on the field. He should go straight for the Dreadnought. Because right now this Dreadnought does not really have support. Those Assault Terminators will hard counter this Dreadnought, especially a ranged Dreadnought. Right here, Daniel's Assault Space Marines getting in a little bit of trouble, but now Daniel's Assault Terminators getting overextended, actually go for the Predator, and he uses the teleport as well. Angels of Death actually activated again. Now, Tiger does not really have great Terminator counters. The missile attacks, Tiger's missile attack, will actually hit the Terminators. They are a large target, and they will actually get hit by AV weapons. But as I mentioned before, that missile does a lot of damage in a single shot, but doesn't really do much DPS. A Terminator went down there, though. I wonder if it actually went down to that Apothecary. This Apothecary right now has been fully upgraded. Anointed Power Axe has been upgraded in the recent version of Elite Mod, so it does more damage than before. It was his most powerful weapon already, but it's certainly still not that. Still wasn't that powerful before. And I mean these. Oh, and this might be a dead Predator. Gets really low on health. One more anything should take it out. But actually, this should be a dead Dreadnought. And that will be the end of that Dreadnought. These Terminators in a lot of trouble right now, though. Oh, one more missile hit needs to go off on that Dreadnought, and the Dreadnought does go down. I thought the Dreadnought just might get out of there with Daniel actually teleporting his Assault Terminators out of there. Only one model left on the Assault Terminators. That's going to be difficult for Daniel to deal with, considering he does not really have the resources to reinforce Terminators. Right now, he can reinforce one, I think. But there's no way he can't reinforce both of them too quickly. And, I mean, Daniel did just have kind of a minor victory, I'd say. He has gotten 2 of the victory points, so the victory points are now ticking in Daniel's favor. But he's still missing most of these resource points. And I think that's something he should try to somehow deal with. And I don't know what the best way would be for him to deal with, because at this point it really seems like Daniel needs all of his units to fight. I didn't catch it before, but he lost his 1 scout squad. And right now it looks like he's going to lose one of his tac squads. Alright, tac squad does get out of there. Does teleport the Force Commander in right there, and I think he might actually take out that Predator. One more Power Fist hit I think would do it. These Vanguard veterans in here as well, and Vanguard veterans actually take out a scout squad for Tiger and will take out that Predator. Wow, good play by Daniel. Back in this game, kind of. And this Plasma Cannon Devastator has been very passive for Tiger. He's basically just using it to cover this victory point, so that if Daniel tries to capture this victory point, the Plasma Cannon Devastator just straight up knocks them off of it and does a lot of damage to them. Meanwhile, Vanguard veterans going after this Plasma Cannon Devastator. Plasma Cannon Devastator gets very close to dying. Will that be a dead Plasma Cannon Devastator? No, it will not be. These Vanguard veterans do not have any more energy to jump in. But now at this point, Tiger is actually going to threaten a triple cap. Vanguard veteran's going to go down from Daniel if he's not careful. But those Vanguard veterans do actually do quite a bit more damage than the Assault Space Marines. Oh, but the Vanguard veteran's in a lot of trouble. 1 Vanguard veteran goes down right there. It was actually the Thunderhammer Vanguard veteran that went down there, but a triple cap for Tiger. And Tiger, again, with massive map control. He's had the map control all game. Daniel did just have some nice victories, taking out a Scout, taking out a Dreadnought, as well as taking out the Predator. But he still has losses of his own to deal with. And then, of course, there's the fact that he doesn't have much resources to get new stuff, in part because he has no map control whatsoever. And it looks like the victory points are... No, wait. I was going to say they're about to tick down, but these Vanguard veterans are capturing this point. I think they will just barely get the cap off and then probably jump out of there, but they might take a plasma cannon shot, but the plasma cannon shot hits this wall, and now it's actually going to be a 2-cap for Daniel. Once these tacs get this point, only 15 VPs left. I think one of the ace in the holes that's keeping Daniel in this game are these Terminators, which obviously the Assault Cannon Terminators or the Assault Terminators something that Tiger cannot get as an Apothecary player. Now, I've been in situations like this before, specifically on this map, where I felt I was doing okay, but I ultimately lost because I lost track of, I think, getting the resource points in the late game because I thought it wouldn't matter, and what only mattered was the VPs and the fighting. But I think then part of the problem was that my opponent kept on pumping out units while I was not able to replace units. So I think it's actually going to be he should actually try to capture those resource points, or he should have. The game's almost over. I don't quite know how much longer Daniel can stay in this. Tiger does actually get a decap off on this point with his Apothecary. This melee Apothecary is actually not that bad, especially now with that buff on the Anointed Power Axe. He can heal himself to keep him in the fight, and then he's got Purification right, so that whenever he heals, he will be doing knockback, weapon knockback to any unit within a radius 7 of the heal. And he can use that on himself in a melee fight to keep him alive, as well as disrupt units. This Apothecary might actually go down here. Something happened right there. I think the Apothecary is retreating. These Assault Terminators in against a lot of stuff, but Tiger, although he's got a lot of units, he doesn't really have any strong counters to the Assault Terminators. Basically nothing that's going to do a lot of damage to them in a short period of time. Daniel almost has 500 red, could do an orbital bombardment, although I don't know if that's the best thing to do. But he does get this victory point over here, and Daniel actually has a 3-cap, believe it or not. I think one of the things that's been hurting Daniel, though, is he's been having trouble threatening these vehicles. He somehow managed to he actually got that vehicle done. He had got the first Predator as well as the Dreadnought. But, I mean, Tiger's now got a second Predator that's giving Daniel a lot of trouble. He's got this other Predator over here as well. I think part of that is Daniel does not have an AV snare. He upgraded to Vanguard Veterans, which it's definitely good against power armor units. I checked the stats at one point for the Vanguard Veterans, and they actually do better damage, better base DPS than regular Assault Space Marines, in addition to having power melee damage. And the Lightning Claw model and the Thunder Hammer model do even more damage than the Power Sword models. Daniel actually called it GG. I'm not sure why. He's got a 3-cap, but I feel like Tiger's in the better position. Actually, Daniel actually took out one of the Predators, and Tiger's now actually backed up all the way into his base and is having a lot of trouble with everything right here. I'm actually really surprised. I actually thought this was going to be Tiger's game. Tiger's now actually backcapping this point over here with Assault Space Marines, backcapping with the Apothecary. Attacks are right here, shooting, but not doing a ton of damage because they have because right now it only has one bolter. It has a missile launcher, which is missing the Apothecary. Daniel's force is coming right here to stop that Apothecary. The Apothecary might be able to get the cap off, at least, I think. Will he? Yes, then he should throw the heal down on himself and then retreat out of there, or he will just die. Although Tiger can instantly... Wow. You gotta be kidding me. So it's a 2-cap. Actually, yeah, 2-cap for Tiger. And Tiger just barely wins that game in the end. Wow, I'm actually surprised and impressed by how close Daniel kept that game, considering he was behind on resources all game. And just then, he had a really strong engagement, and I had no idea why that was such a strong engagement. Maybe because he had a second squad of Assault Terminators, which is obviously something that the Apothecary can't pull out. But in any case, hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.